So now let's talk about the network load balancer. So it's a layer 4 load balancer, and therefore it allows you to deal with TCP and UDP traffic. Okay, this is lower level. Layer 7 was HTTP, and layer 4 is going to be TCP and UDP traffic. So these work for the network load balancer, and therefore when in the exam you see UDP, think network load balancer or even TCP. Okay. Also, on top of it, the network load balancer is really high performance, and therefore it can handle millions of requests per second, and the latency compared to the application load balancer is lessened. That means you get around 100 milliseconds versus 400 milliseconds for the ALB. Now, another specificity of the network load balancer is that it only has one static IP per availability zones, and you can assign an elastic IP to each AZ. So this is very helpful when you need to expose your application with a set of static IPs, and this can be elastic IPs. So when the exam you say, hey, your application can only be accessed within 1, 2, or 3 different IPs, then you need to think about the network load balancer as an option. So if you see extreme performance, TCP or UDP, or static IPs, think network load balancer. Now, using it is not included in the AWS free tier. So let's have a look at how that works. So it works very similarly to the application balancer. We create target groups, and then the network balancer will redirect to them. So we can use, for example, the TCP traffic, or for example, in the backend HTTP, but still in the front end use TCP. So what about the target groups? This is the important parts. So the target groups can be EC2 instances. That means that your network load balancer can redirect to your EC2 instances and send TCP or UDP traffic to them. But you can also register IP addresses. And these IP addresses, when they're hard-coded, and they must be hard-coded, they must be private IPs. So why would you do this? Well, you can, of course, send the private IP of the EC2 instance that you own, but also you could use the private IP of a server that you have in your own data center. And therefore, both of them can be fronted by the same network load balancer. And it's also possible for you to have a network load balancer in front of an application load balancer. So in that case, the NLB is in front of your ALB. So why would you do this? Well, thanks to the network load balancer, you would get, for example, the fixed IP addresses. And then thanks to the application load balancer, you can get all the rules that you have around handling HTTP type of traffic. So it is a valid combination. Now, one last thing you need to know for the exam is that the health checks performed by the network load balancer target groups support 3 different kind of protocols. They support the TCP protocol, the HTTP protocol, and the HTTPS protocol. So if your backend application supports the HTTP or HTTPS protocol, then it is definitely possible for you to define a health check on these protocols. Okay, so that's it for the network load balancer. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next lecture.